Peace and blessing. This is Derric Rau Khu. And we've all heard this proverb that when the student is ready to teach, it will appear. And I'm here to tell you that's been grossly misinterpreted. I remember the first time I heard this proverb, what I'm thinking is, and how I'm interpreting it, is that the proverb is basically saying that I got to study up, okay? And because I'm interpreting it as I got to study up, that meant that basically, I got to learn about these different things. And that's what a lot of us, we do. We go through this, we first start off on this spiritual path and we like, oh, we got to study up. We got to go here. We're going to get this going. And that's what I did. I learned everything I could. That's the reason why I was reading so much. And I was learning about metaphysics and learning about this and learning about that. And on three separate occasions, there was 3 separate traditions that I was going to be initiated into. And at the last moment, okay, and when I'm saying last moment, I'm like, a week before the initiation ceremony or 2 weeks before the initiation ceremony. In one case, it was a month before the initiation ceremony. It all falls through. And I couldn't figure out why, because it was like, here it is, I'm learning all about this religion or learning all about this tradition and learning, this and that and the other and all these other kind of things. And then all of a sudden it fall through. And I remember the first time it happened, the second time it happened. First time it happened, I was kind of upset. Second time it happened, I'm starting to looking at it and say, okay, well, maybe it was, I'm not meant to be called, or I'm not meant to be initiated. I'm not meant to join this tradition. Maybe that's the reason why it's happening. And that's pretty much how I was interpreting it. But I didn't get upset about it until I went ahead and I received the reading from this Oshun priestess, who Iya, or I called her Iya. It wasn't until Iya went ahead and she gave me this reading. She's looking at, the shells and whatever, and she gives me this reading and she says, the reason why you're having the problems that you're having on this spiritual path is because you have not answered your calling, which is to be a shaman. Now, I remember when I heard this, the first time I heard this, I went through the whole hero's journey thing of, oh my God, I don't want to be a shaman, blah, 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 blah. But then after a couple of weeks, after it settled, that's what I was called to do, I went ahead and I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'm called to be a shaman. And I, took it like that and was like, okay, that's it. But then something else happened. The fact that I was told that I didn't answer my calling. Once I went ahead and I kind of dwelled on that and thought about that, it was like I didn't answer my calling. I got really, really upset. I got really, really pissed and really, really angry, because here I am, I'm thinking on 3 separate occasions, I was supposed to be initiated and it fell through. So what the heck do you mean I didn't answer my calling? I've been trying to answer my calling by going through the initiation, and I remember feeling that way, and I was, like I said, I was just so angry about it. That's what made me say, I was like, forget this. I'm tired. I spent too long dealing with this. I spent all these years going ahead and studying this and reading this and trying to be initiated, saving up money for this and buying the ritual clothes and all this other kinds of stuff. I went through all this. I was like, I went through all this and nothing. And this is what happens. This is where I'm at. Yeah, okay, whatever. And I remember when I did that, that's when I turned my back on everything. I was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Let me focus on my career. Let me focus on making money and be through with it. Most of you who have heard this story before, what happened. I went ahead, next thing you know, my body became deathly ill. And it was when my body became deathly ill, I'm in the hospital. laying on the gurney. And when I'm saying I became deathly ill, my body became deathly ill, it wasn't a near-death experience, but we was near death. Let me put it like that. And it was with that awareness, that death awareness, that's what opened me up. And I began to hear spirits, began to hear my guides talk to me, began to see, hear my ancestors and have mental images of my ancestors. And I kept that awareness. I kept it when I was released from the hospital. And once I was released from the hospital, keeping that same awareness, that's when I went ahead and I'm talking to my ancestors, talking to my guides, and that's when they introduced to me the Ma'an Cosmogram. And it was after they introduced to me the Ma'an Cosmogram, I started to go ahead and I saw the story of Osir in a completely different light. One of the things that was shown to me when I was looking at the story of Osir, one of the things that was being brought to my attention was that when Set went ahead and murdered Osir and usurped the throne and began looking for Set so he could murder her as well, okay? It was shown to me now. Set went ahead, when she hears the news that Set went ahead and murdered her husband or murdered, Osir, she puts on her mourning clothes, cuts off her hair, and she goes looking for the body of Osir. Now, most of us, or most of you all, who've been through some formal initiation, it doesn't matter if you went through a formal initiation in any of the African traditions, or even if you went through a formal initiation in the church. Mourning clothes in traditional African thinking, most of the traditions in which I've come across, the mourning clothes are white. When she cuts off her hair, those of us, or those of you again, who remember your formal initiation, and those of you who have not been formally initiated, but you've read about it, when she cuts off her hair, you'll recall that in these traditions, they shave their head or they cut their hair off. Okay? All right? It still is not dawning on me what the story is telling me until I recall, or, until they basically show me that in the story of Osir, one of the versions, Ra, taking pity upon Set, sends Mpu, who the Greeks call Anubis, to help her find the body of Osir. Now, when they tell me this, or they're reminding me that this is what takes place in the story of Osir, this is when I'm looking back and they show me the Ma'an Cosmogram. And in the Ma'an Cosmogram, you see that Ra is at the top point. In Kikongo, or based upon the Kinga de Congo, that's the Kala point. Okay? That point, that moment, that Ra moment leads into the Ra Atum, or Atum Ra moment. Remember, Atum Ra, or Ra Atum, is the western point. That is the moment of death. So, when Ra sends forth Mpu, it is Mpu that is basically going to open the way for her to be initiated. We've been taught to interpret this literally, and that's the reason why a lot of times we miss this. Okay? But it's a form of initiation. And Mpu was the one who opened the way for her to be initiated. But we're still missing something. The reason why Ra, when it was allowed, or the reason why Ra went ahead and sent forth Mpu to initiate, to open the doors for her to be initiated, which is basically symbolism to find the body of Osir. It was because she was in mourning, and she basically came with her slate clean. So in other words, a lot of times when we go in here and we want to learn from someone who knows more than us, a lot of times, because of the way in which we've been raised here in the West, we go ahead and we talk to these, we talk to people who know more than us. We talk to people who've had more experience than us. We talk to them and we basically come to them with our head already full, with our head full of all this information, with our head full with all these theories and ideas and all this other kind of stuff based upon stuff in which we've read, not based upon someone's actual wisdom. And this is the reason why we always miss our initiation. Now, the other thing about the teacher appearing, once I went ahead and I understood this, once it dawned on me, oh, this is what you're talking about. This is accepting my calling. Accepting my calling referred to me going ahead and basically coming and being open to the Spirit. Once I went ahead and I realized this and I understood this, then it became clear that the teacher will appear when the student is ready didn't refer to the fact of an actual physical person coming and helping me, okay, or helping any of us. It referred to the fact that once you go ahead and you come as a student with an open mind, ready to learn, your teachers will appear. And that teacher can be somebody physical or someone spiritual. In other words, it can be an actual physical person or physical individual who's going to teach you. Or most likely, it could be an ancestor or spirit guide that's going to teach you. But they can't teach you. They can't teach you if you already know what you're doing. They can't teach you if you don't come, if you're not humble and you don't come with an open mind. They ain't going to teach you. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, feel free to drop me a line. Until next time, hit the poop.